day 3 of Celebrate Hamilton 2018. The first day we were at Weehawken, paying our respects there from the day of the duel. Yesterday at Trinity Church. And today is a dedication to understanding who this founding father is. How many of you here were the biggest Alexander Hamilton fans 10 years ago? Raise your hands. Okay. In partnership with the National Park Service, is to continue to discover the truth about Hamilton's record. And we're so fortunate to have our speaker here tonight to do that. So I want to thank the National Park Service, especially in Manhattan sites, through the AHA Society and Hamilton Grange, Hamilton's home. Thank you very much. It was April 2008, and I was pitching men's league down in Clearwater, Florida, and we won the championship. We were undefeated, so we went to Buffalo Wild Wings. And Windsor Marsh, as always, was reliable. He ordered his brewski right away. He ordered Sam Adams beer. And then Richard Kemet said to me, Rand, you're a patriotic guy. Do you know much about Sam Adams? He's sort of related to John Adams, and he stirred things up, Tea Party, you know. And Richard said, you should read a book on him, it's pretty interesting. I said, okay. And I read it on Sam Adams. I was transformed. I was ashamed of myself because here, being a patriotic American, I did not know that this Sam Adams deserved so much honor and respect. I just started reading. So for the next 3.5 years, I read 51,000 pages and about 100 books on general. There were about 47 to 50 founding fathers, founding mothers, and what I call key contributors that I had studied. And for no purpose, no reason, but every time I would read a book about a person, I would write down in a file, like, what did they do? What did they accomplish? What did they achieve? Blah, 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 blah. I had nice, interesting, some a little bit more. And it was all good. But there was one gentleman that I had no interest in studying. That was Alexander Hamilton. So I was enjoying studying all of these other founding fathers, all the struggles about the Constitution, the first few terms of first few presidents of the United States. And then there was a book that was recommended. Very often in a book, it would recommend other books, suggested reading. And one of them I saw a couple times was Founding Brothers by Joseph Ellis. Okay, I got that. And so I got the book, and I looked, there were like 6 founding fathers in it. And one of them was Alexander Hamilton. So I'm reading it, and I'm like, wait a second, this is really important. See, Franklin didn't do it, Jefferson didn't do it. I said, this is really important. And here I was a business transformation consultant. I knew how hard it was to transform a business. I could see the complication of trying to transform a country that had just gotten its independence, had tried to put together Articles of Confederation, tried to have some strength at the national level, and state governors wanted to go in their own direction. I could see the difficulty, and I was reflecting on how we live today. I'm like, well, that's a big difference from where we started and how we got there. So I learned that Hamilton had something to do with it, so I started reading Hamilton. So then I went heavy Hamilton, 34 books I read on Hamilton. And it was remarkable that every book that I read, I learned something more. But it got to a point where I was discovering neat things about Hamilton. I would share it with my family. I'd share it with my neighbors. I'd share it with my friends. And after a while, they go, okay, he did something else great. So I saw that, wow, here this guy deserves so much credit. He did so much that there doesn't seem to be the capacity for the average person to want to hear about it or hear all of it. So these various people were questioning why I felt that Alexander Hamilton was so significant. If no one else, the history books and educated, no one's hearing about him, how could it be true that I feel so strongly about this? And it got to a point where it was a bit frustrating. I was trying to find a way to do it. I couldn't figure a way to do it. I couldn't figure a way. So then I hear the news. The Hamilton Grange, Hamilton's home, has been relocated, restored, and they're going to open it September 17th. I'm like, wow, of 2011. And so I'm like, oh, good, I have so many questions, and I know that all the people who care about Hamilton and all the smart, knowledgeable people, and they're all going to be there, and I'm going to go pick their brains and create a relationship and resolve some of these things that weren't resolved in my thinking. And so I came up. At that moment, I was about to go out, I met Mariana Aller and Tom Aller, and they shared their passion about Hamilton. I shared mine. My wife came in I had asked her to get our listing of all the different Hamilton sites, because after a while I was checking off, as I was reading the books, I was listing all the places where he was born, grew up, lived, worshipped, education, lawyer, war locations. So we were checking them, and they said, oh, you're really organized. Of course, being an IBM, we do that kind of stuff. And so that was the beginning of the connection way. And all of a sudden, an idea came to me. At IBM, when we were doing consulting, they had a special program at the Palisades in New Jersey about how to deal with difficult clients. And so I said, well, this is a difficult engagement. Let me see if I can go through this methodology, this approach. 57 minutes later, 4:57 in the morning of October 8th, 2011, boom, everything came into focus. All these things I had, I got the first statement. Alexander Hamilton was George Washington's indispensable partner in war and peace for over 22 years. Okay, so that was a statement that would be impressive to people. And then I had all the evidence behind every word. What he did during the war, what he did during the peace, how he was indispensable to Washington. And then I said, well, look at all the things that Hamilton did for the foundations that we live with today. So then I came up with the statement that Alexander Hamilton created the vision and foundations upon which the United States of America achieved greatness, and I had the proof behind that. So for the next 5 days through October 12th, I wrote, composed, and consolidated. I worked 20 to 23 hours per day, full of energy, and so many things came. In fact, the first presentation was about Washington. What did he do in those 25 years? Then I compared 7 founding fathers. And on one page, one set of bar charts of these 7 founding fathers, so it was Henry Knox, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, John Jay, and Ben Franklin. So I said at each point in time, to what degree did each of these 7 founding fathers help Washington win the war and win the peace? And if they significantly contributed to Washington's success, they got a dark color on their part of the bar chart. If they somewhat contributed, they got more pastel, less color. If they didn't contribute much at all to Washington's success, white. One picture, wow, Hamilton, color galore. And then the rest of the presentation is what's the proof behind the color. And I asked for years and years, if I'm missing something about one of the founding fathers, let me know, I'll add it. And it has not changed in almost 7 years since the breakthrough. And the second one, what are the foundations we live with today? To what degree did those 7, other than Knox, contribute to the foundations that we live with today? Again, Hamilton, color, 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 and some others surprisingly very little to no color. So it told that story, and then there's the proof behind it. And that's changed once. This spring, it actually improved Hamilton's standing on the legal side. Many things came from it. I did a 25-year plan. I said I got to visit all the sites. We've got to work on getting 1757 back as the respected date of Hamilton's birth. We had to form a society. We had to make sure that information got accurate in textbooks that fed articles in newspapers, etc., and to talk about this. Also an idea for a movie, idea for books. So that was put in place, and the Alexander Hamilton Awareness Society was founded on October 11th. So that was the 4th day in when I knew we had to have an organization. October 11th, 2011, that the Alexander Hamilton Awareness Society was born. A few days after coming up with ideas with my wife, it's such a long name, about Alexander Hamilton, and I think it was actually my wife Cindy who said, well, I didn't want admiration, I didn't want appreciation society, and so I was studying about how to name things, and it says you should be clear about who it is you're talking about. Hamilton could have been a lot of people, Alexander Hamilton, and I felt that if people were aware of what he did, then they would appreciate him and admire him, and everything would flow from there. So that's where and so then the AHA Society came from there, short, memorable, and has served it well. But I knew that this was a unique way to make the statement, and then I took that statement about Hamilton being Washington's indispensable partner in war and peace, and I sketched out a PowerPoint presentation. She and I decided to come up to New York City for Hamilton's birthday on January 11th. And in preparation for that, I had met Janie Gwill and Bill Crystal, who were early dedicated to the scholarship about Hamilton, just really precious people. It's helpful. So I went to him and I said, I'm going up there. Are there any activities going on up at Trinity, where he's buried here in Lower Manhattan? And Janie said, well, there's a guy I met up there. He seems to be on top of things, and Arthur Piccolo. And so she gave me his email, and it was just a few days before, 2 days before, and I sent a note up to Arthur Piccolo, and I said, is there something going on? He said, I'll be there, and we'll have a ceremony to honor him. And I found out later that Arthur has been holding the flame for a couple of decades in doing that. So I show up. It was a gray, cool day. Of course, it's January 11th, and I saw him in a gray trench coat over in the corner, and I said, maybe that's him. I went over, and sure enough, it was. It was great that we did connect. And then we were, sizing each other up, what we knew and stuff like that. And so when I met up with Arthur, he said, I'll know if you know Hamilton. What was the most important day in Alexander Hamilton's life? So I was thinking about a number of things. And then when he shared the date, I said, Arthur, come over here to my daughter who's on the bench. I said, Nicole, what is the most important day that I talk about in our presentation? And she said, September 11th, 1789, the exact same day that we see the inflector when the whole nation moved in a new direction. Arthur had that similar understanding. So we both knew that we had the truth about Hamilton, understanding that his influence, his effect, and on. And so Arthur was just incredible. In fact, he's someone who's linked us up that are coming along the way to grow a critical mass of people. And so he called up John Herzog and said, there's someone here who knows about Hamilton, has some ideas, has some breakthroughs. Arthur led it. He was very kind to let me say a few words. It was really special. It meant a lot to me. That was January 11th, 2012. So I went through that, said goodbye. All of a sudden, I don't know how it happened, but Doug Hamilton was contacted saying that and Doug Hamilton, by the way, is a 5th great grandson of Alexander Hamilton. He was the one in 2004, 8 years earlier, that was the representative of the Hamilton family that held the gun in the reenactment of the duel in Weehawken. And so Doug was interested in hearing, based on the feedback from the National Park Service. Doug flew down to Tampa, Florida, together, and at the time, Doug mentioned two important things. Number one is Hamilton wasn't revered, honored, or respected their whole lives. So the Hamilton family, it wasn't a lot of information and pride or knowledge about Hamilton, what he had done. He mentioned that when he was in the duel reenactment, the press was coming up to him asking him a lot of questions about Hamilton, and he realized, boy, I better bone up even further on learning about Hamilton. And of course, Doug Hamilton's a very sharp guy. Coincidentally, he also worked for IBM on the Columbus, Ohio branch for the banking industry. Quite fascinating in that respect. So we went down, I presented the first presentation. It was February 11th, so it's like almost exactly a month from when I shared at the National Park Service here in New York. Through our connection through Arthur Piccolo with John Herzog. John Herzog was interested in the finding, wanted to hear more, and so it was set up that I would give a combined 1 hour talk of the two presentations at the Museum of American Finance in July of 2012. And just before that, Nicole and I reconnected with Marianne Aller and Thomas Aller. We formally put a board together as a nonprofit. From there, John Herzog, maybe a year or so later, became an honorary chair, and his guidance was instrumental. Arthur Piccolo helped us establish relationships and connections with various people throughout the lower Manhattan area, like Trinity Church. That was really important. Federal Hall, National Park Service, the Alexander Hamilton U.S. Custom House, National Archives, the Museum of American Finance. So this is where a lot was happening, and so it was maturing. We started then as a board developing relationships, because we said we can't do all the educating about Hamilton. And we visited the site. Mariana, Tom did, Nicole and I did, and my wife Cindy did. We visited the sites, and they didn't know what Hamilton did at those sites. Not at all, zero. So we said, well, they're the educators every day. So part of the strategy in that 25-year plan was educate the educators, teach the teachers, so that as they meet every day, and when we met with them, they got excited to learn a new dimension. And in some cases, they already had a full script, so Hamilton wasn't really going to, but if people asked questions, they could at least answer. So this is part of the maturing process along the way. The setting those relationships, and then we started setting up, starting that July of 2012, Celebrate Hamilton. So we just celebrated our 7th annual this year. That was our first. The next January, we started Happy Birthday Hamilton in 2013. And we worked on connecting with Nevis and with St. Croix. Robert White is the president of the Alexander Hamilton Society, his own society at St. Croix, and then Evelyn Henville and the dignitaries from Nevis we connected with. And again, Arthur was helpful in connecting us there, to the point where, as we became not only a nonprofit, but in 2013, we filed to become a 501c3 that was going to be critical if people were going to donate money to sustain our work. Once that was approved by the IRS, we moved to another level. So once we had our program, Celebrate Hamilton, Happy Birthday Hamilton, we started expanding out and holding events at these various places, because we would show these sites how we could share information and the excitement and bring people in to the various programs. So of course we started at Lower Manhattan, where Hamilton was a lawyer and lived, and many of the children were born, went to Trinity Church, baptized here. And of course, right here behind me, you might see part of the Church of Trinity Church, and below me right here is Hamilton's grave monument. So this is really the heart of it. So July 11th was when the duel occurred in Weehawken, New Jersey. Aaron Burr, who was the sitting vice president of the United States under Thomas Jefferson, and Alexander Hamilton rode from Manhattan over to meet in Weehawken for the duel early morning of July 11th. So we go to celebrate Hamilton's life over there and to remember Hamilton. And so on July 11th every year, we have a program with with the city of Weehawken, the Weehawken Historical Commission, because there's a beautiful Hamilton monument, a bust of Hamilton, a big flagpole overlooking the bluffs where below was the actual dueling ground. And something big happened that first July of 2012. We met Michael E. Newton there. The power of social media, Nicole sent it out through Twitter. He saw it, he was there. So I said, there's a real need to clean up his formative years. He said, oh, that's right, there's so much weakness here. Doug Hamilton encouraged him, Bill Crystal, Janie, so a lot of people encouraged him, and he went to town. I mean, and he has now created the definitive book on Alexander Hamilton's first half of his life. It's called Alexander Hamilton, The Formative Years, came out in 2015. So we had Weehawken, we had the grave, we had the Museum of American Finance for communicating talks. We also developed a relationship with Federal Hall. Now this is where George Washington was inaugurated as the first president of the United States on April 30th, 1789. On September 11th, 1789, Arthur and I agree was a real changing point, transformative point in our nation. Hamilton became Secretary of Treasury right there at Federal Hall. That's where he also founded the Coast Guard, the U.S. Customs that he led, and the Lighthouse Service, Superintendent of Lighthouse Service, et cetera, et cetera. And his first monumental report on credit. So a lot of the beginning of Hamilton under the Constitution happened right here. So there's a lot right here in Lower Manhattan where Hamilton made his mark. He also made his mark as a lawyer, and he was also a lawyer down here on Wall Street and Pine and a few other locations locally. So we got that covered initially. We got Hamilton's home. So that was July of 2012. Then we turned to the Happy Birthday Hamilton in January. We're back here at his grave, but we also then connected with Nevis where he was born. And we did a number of creative things with satellite connections. So we've done that kind of thing regularly, including the U.S. Coast Guard, the Bowling Green Association with Arthur. We've had the raising of the flag and the large flagpole here, thanks to the work Arthur did to get those flags. And so that got his birthday. So those are two main times, birthday, January, his death when we celebrate his life in July when a lot of people are able to travel and it's a little warmer. From there, we started branching out to other locations. So we went into North Jersey. When you study Alexander Hamilton's life, you find that a lot of Hamilton's key moments of life happened in North Jersey. The first one, of course, when he came to the mainland was Elizabethtown, where he went to prep school so he could go to college. So that's a remarkable place now called the Snyder Academy. There's the Boxwood Hall, which was Elias Boudinot's home, that was a mentor and housed Alexander Hamilton during his stay there. There's the William Livingston family, very close and often housed Alexander Hamilton. So those two mentors were real key. So through just calling up the different sites of places we knew Hamilton had those key roles and responsibilities, we just called directly, we met up with them, told them what we were doing, they were interested, and so we partnered up. So with Hamilton's key sites very often being in North Jersey, we connected with Elliot D. and Mary Beth Lapham at the Snyder Academy where Hamilton went to prep school, with Kathy Craig at the Boxwood Hall for one of the mentors. There at Boudinot, Elias Boudinot. We met with Bill Schroe, who's the director of the Liberty Hall Museum, with the Livingston family. Then, interestingly, the PR person for the Hamilton opening of the Hamilton home, the Grange, became the superintendent of Patterson National Park. So that's how we got a real quick connection, a strong connection there with Patterson. And then we connected through Arthur when we learned that Hamilton helped found Jersey City. So we met with the mayor and Councilman Boggiano, and so developed those sites in those locations. From there, out of New York City, in subsequent the next couple of Julys, we moved up what we called Hamilton on the Hudson. So I'm from Poughkeepsie, and real big was the 225th anniversary of the ratification of the U.S. Constitution by the state of New York, and Hamilton led the argument in those debates and the strategy. So we held that in Poughkeepsie, and coincidentally, while we were there preparing for those events, we heard that this gentleman, Lin-Manuel Miranda, had been writing some songs to the musical, which we'd heard about, but he was going to take it to a reading festival at Vassar College, where I got married, in Poughkeepsie, where my wife and I worked for IBM. And the ratification happened on July 26th. The reading festival was a 3-week festival. It's been going on for over 100 years. And so I called so many, it was so bureaucratic. This person only has this part of the decision, depending on this. And I didn't think I was going to be successful, but I told them, if you could have it the next day, Saturday, July 27th, 2013, then we've got descendants of Hamilton, John Jay, Livingston, Clinton. If you could do that, it'd be great. They could be there, and it's all part of, what he's doing with the Hamilton musical. Finally, I get word they decided to do it on the 27th. Great. So they said, we got some tickets, and I didn't know how big the theater was, but I said, I'd like 10. 10 would be, 10, okay, 10 blah. So go to Reading Festival. We have the ratification conference. We met Ron Chernow the night before. That C-SPAN just filmed our 15th event in 5 years. We're very grateful to them because, again, that gets the word out and educates, and it's great that they found there's enough value in the speakers that we're bringing forward and the information to do that. And we then had a number of Hamilton on the Hudson events in Poughkeepsie, because when Hamilton served at the in New Windsor near Newburgh, New York, when he was chief of staff to Washington, the winter encampments were there. Hamilton often stopped there. After he was married, he lived across the river, which they called Fishkill Landing. We call Beacon now. So we've been back to Beacon with events and the perimeter of the home that was there. So we did that. Then we went up the rest of the Hudson. We went up to where his wife, Betsy Elizabeth Schuyler, grew up and lived, and where they were married. So we held events up there. We enriched Hamilton's at the various sites he spent on the Hudson River. We did New York City, we told you about. We did North Jersey. Now the next one in 2013, after Happy Birthday Hamilton, this was really big, Philadelphia. Many people didn't realize the extent of Hamilton's work and as a military person, etc., in Philadelphia. So Nicole and I were always meeting with these people, meeting these places to nurture the relationship and to help them learn about Hamilton. And there was nothing. Again, Hamilton was a non-entity in Philadelphia, total non-entity. And so they were very kind. I shared my 2 presentations with the chief curator and some of the staff. I would interact with the Rangers, just getting a sense, did they know who Hamilton was? Some of them, not a big deal. Some of them really liked him. There were a couple that really thought highly of Hamilton. This is very encouraging. And I've always felt that the more people study Hamilton, the more they would admire him. Just start looking. In fact, that to me is one of the big things about the musical. Before, like myself, oh, who wants to even look at this guy, to now there's permission and interest. You just look, you're going to find great things about Alexander Hamilton. I was talking to this one ranger, her name was Nicole, and I said about the First Bank of the United States. And she said, yes, we just had our annual plan, being January, and it's just a shame that that beautiful building has been vacant for 30 years and there's no mission or purpose for it. Boom, that's all I need to hear. So it seemed that the management team there was very interested and excited about not only does Philadelphia talk about the Constitution, but now has an opportunity to talk about finance and economics. So we developed that and nurtured it. We brought people in, and now with a musical, there's even more interest, and they have sized reopening the First Bank of the United States at $26 million, and already in just this year they've gotten $18 million once the project went out. So they think it's going to be reopened in 2 to 3 years. That was not even in the thoughts or ideas just 5 years ago. So then we started working on the U.S. Mint that's there. So we met with the director there. We met with the National Constitution Center, Jeffrey Rosen, the president and CEO there. Michael Quinn, later president and CEO of the Unfolding Museum of the American Revolution, which opened a year ago, April 19th. So we kept working, helping them understand, and now what a transformation. The National Constitution Center has an exhibit dedicated to Hamilton. In their main exhibit space, they have big discs, bright discs pointing anything to do with Hamilton. They have a Hamilton trivia in the center of that walk area. When we first showed up, they had not one book, not one cup, not one trinket to do with Hamilton. Now it is full of it there. And they said it's their biggest seller. They can't keep things on the shelf. When I talked to the director, Museum of the American Revolution, incredible commitment and respect and knowledge and scholarly understanding about Hamilton. And they've had an exhibit that went on earlier last year, but now they have a major exhibit. The whole first floor is now going to be dedicated to 5 elements of Hamilton's life. And they're not only saying this is what Hamilton did, but it's geared to 4th to 6th graders, where they're going to put uniforms on. They're going to see mutinies coming forward. They're going to design their own money. So it'll be hands-on. And the big deal is that they're not just saying this is what Hamilton did. They're saying these are the qualities, the characteristics of Hamilton. Young people, you should embrace them and make them part of your life. That is really, really a big change. So Philadelphia's next. The last big area we needed to get to was Washington, D.C. Now, Hamilton never was in D.C. There was no part of his life because the capital of the United States was in Philadelphia. After it moved 2 years here, 89, 90, it moved for the next 10 years to Philadelphia. By that time, Hamilton's role as Secretary of Treasury and subsequently Major General of the military ended in 1800 in Philadelphia. But we know that's where the center of the government is. That's where U.S. Treasury is now. Another mint is there. So we've been nurturing that along. And just this year, major events at the Society of Cincinnati headquarters. George Washington University, Antonia Chambers had pulled together original newspapers that told the highlights of various Hamilton documents and major contributions to our nation from the 1700s into the early 1800s on display. We've spoken and had speakers at U.S. Treasury. Michael Newton just spoke there this May. And lastly, an area that gets nowhere near the attention it should. So you have the Hudson River, goes from New York City up to our capital, Albany. Of course, what's interesting, the capital back then, it would go from New York City, before it was the Constitution, New York City to Poughkeepsie, which was halfway to Albany, back, boom, 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 and now it's in Albany. Well, west of there is the Mohawk River, and there was so much Revolutionary War heroism with Fort Stanwix and Oriskany Battlefield and General Herkimer and Marinus Willett. And so we just had Hamilton there just in the last 2 weeks. I spoke twice, one on Hamilton's military service that spanned 25 years, and then I gave a talk on Hamilton, the man versus the musical, the Rome Historical Society near Utica and Syracuse, and then the National Park site, Fort Stanwix. So we've got Hamilton, we have the relationships, we have programming from Lower Manhattan, Upper Manhattan, North Jersey, Central Jersey, the Battle of Monmouth, and Trenton, Princeton. We have Philadelphia, Valley Forge, D.C., Hudson River, and Mohawk. So they know who we are. They know if they have information that they want. So that was really big. In parallel, our big core mission is accurate information about Hamilton. So in every one of those regions, cities, Hamilton locations, the Alexander Hamilton Awareness Society, we're the ones that enriched each of those sites with programs there and with information and with websites and with social media, that we actually became sort of a publicity arm for them. So they would do their county, they'd do their area, but we made it go nationwide and worldwide. And so we became useful partners to them, and they became useful partners to us. So this has enriched over 7 years where we have real good relationships, to the point that a year and a half ago, one of the biggest, most prideful moments for the Alexander Hamilton Awareness Society, the AHA Society, is that the National Park Service signed a formal contract with us to become the official interpretive partners of Hamilton's home. And so we've been providing speakers. Arthur got to speak, Michael Newton, Nicole, our board, Marianne and Tom Aller. So we keep bringing people who are scholarly and knowledgeable, accurate information. In parallel, very important, people started learning that because we knew the scholarly aspect of Alexander Hamilton, we started having publishers, authors coming to us to review their books. In some cases it was so bad they would just get upset and walk away and do their own thing. In other cases there were substantial change and they didn't care. They would do whatever it took to make it accurate, and they've been eternally pleased that it will stand the test of time because it's accurate information. One of the fortunate aspects of our board of directors of the AHA Society is Marianne Aller is in special collections. She was at Harvard University at the Houghton Library. She's now at Wellesley College. Because of that, we were able to have open doors, reciprocalness with Columbia University. We also, with Hamilton founding the Coast Guard, we've had extensive relationships with them. First of all, Sector 1, Sector New York, has been just wonderful with being available at both the Happy Birthday Hamilton events and Celebrate Hamilton and other events throughout the year. But they've given a lot of esteem and respect to the ceremonies here. We have been working with the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. It's not public knowledge yet in July of 2018, but on October 12th we've been working for 2 years with them as the consultants for accuracy about Hamilton for a brand new 8-foot statue. They haven't had a statue of their founder there before. It will be revealed in October, and I've been asked to give a keynote talk for that event. We have been attending a number of events where the brand new U.S. Coast Guard cutter Hamilton is housed in North Charleston, South Carolina. We've been there for change of command. We've been there for the commissioning. The other location that has a lot of Hamilton artifacts is Hamilton College. And Hamilton College has the 14 pages of the original notes of Rutgers v. Waddington in 1784, when Hamilton, after fighting for 4 years against the British, what does he then do after the Treaty of Paris and we get our independence? He defends the British against the overstepping of the New York State legislature to penalize them for taking homes and businesses here in Manhattan. So Hamilton College was one of the ones given a grant, and they asked me to come up and speak, and that's when I first put together the talk, Alexander Hamilton, the man versus the musical. Did he really deserve all this attention? Did he really accomplish a lot was the question. Then the other part was, well, what's in the musical about his life and what's not in the musical? And what's the impact been about the musical on the nation? And not only his reputation, but it's been great that immigrants, inner cities, minorities are associating with our founders, our founding documents, our founding battles. Young people are digging in and studying it. It's really remarkable, the impact of it. So we've been sharing that through our monthly newsletters, our social media is active, our website. We have one website, All Things Hamilton, and All Places Hamilton, a subset of that, where if anyone wants to travel wherever Hamilton was, just go to allplaceshamilton.com. It's right there. If you want to know a richer, broader sense of Hamilton the man and the recommended books, it's allthingshamilton.com. For our overall society, it's the ahasociety.org. That's all you have to do. So at that time, I was communicating with Lin-Manuel Miranda by email about once a month. Obviously, I didn't bother him, but I let him know that Nicole and I were coming up because he stated, I want this to be historically accurate. He had been to a couple of our AHA events up at Morris Jamel Mansion, who's been a great partner of ours, and down here at Trinity Church. He came down here with his crew to film, bringing together what Arthur Piccolo, what our society's done. We're trying to bring together the slivers of people who have knowledge about Hamilton and create that creative mass, critical mass to give strength. And with the musical now, we have wind with our sails, not in our face, that we had for a long time. And the neat thing is from the musical is that each of these sites that liked what we were sharing and stuff, now children and families and people wanted to come to the site, and now they felt, wow, we can be ready because we're not blindsided at the last minute. We have partners in the Alexander Hamilton Awareness Society. We're available, and we're helping the accurate information about Hamilton, because one of the dangerous things that has happened, one of the bad sides about the musical, is that people got excited, and so many of the big media sources, what did they do? They went to their Rolodex. You know, people they had relationships with the last 10, 15, 20 years. Guess what? Those are the ones that perpetuated the mischaracterization about Hamilton. And then there were some people who said they want to stir up energy and attention, so they would take a decidedly negative, and they would look for those negative things that were part of that mischaracterization. So we've had to work very hard to address false information, journal articles. When they were looking to remove Hamilton from the $10 bill and the currency, we pulled together strategic teams and strategies and communications. And I know Arthur also from Bowling Green Association had worked on a campaign. So many of us that were leading on the Hamilton side pulled together a campaign and contributed. Yes, the musical had a lot to do with it, but there was a broader support for accuracy and respect. So that was an important part of our journey. What's important for the Alexander Hamilton Awareness Society over the next 5 years is continually striding for accuracy. That means all books. So we're looking for the long term. We're not like every journal article trying to respond. We're trying for the long term. So we need the books, the respected books, textbooks. That's the next area, is the textbooks need to be accurate. In case the textbooks haven't included Hamilton, they need to embrace and tell that story. We need to get Philadelphia enriched and get that bank open. We need to continue Washington, D.C.'s respect and opening. The musical, again, keeping it energized and connecting with people. We need more chapter presence in additional states. We're at about 14 or 15. We need to continue celebrating those people who've written the books that are scholarly based. So we celebrate them, we give them awards, National Hamilton Scholar Awards, we give them legacy awards if they've had a substantial contribution to the discussion of Hamilton's life and legacy. Any movies, books, statues, anything of permanence that's going to last for a long time. We need to stay engaged. We also need to have financial support for this work. A lot of the younger people are used to getting everything free on the internet. Well, it takes time and resources to have these big websites to put on these programs. So we do encourage people and hope to have more substantial donors and members. When I first started this 7 years ago, I said the end result would be that Alexander Hamilton would be the number 2 or 3 most highly ranked founding father, and people laughed and mocked, and I think we're moving in that direction at a very healthy degree. And I really do believe, when you look at the facts and the evidence, that no one was more important to Washington's success during the war, establishing the Constitution, 2 terms as president, and then during the quasi-war, than Alexander Hamilton. When you look at the foundations we live with today, from foreign policy, law, military, finance, economics, and Constitution, all the key areas, Hamilton led in all of them. And not only the Constitution is a neat sheet of paper, but it's not just that. It's breathing life into it, making it work, finding those checks and balances, finding balance in the executive branch, where before the legislative branch was always the boss, and the executive branch didn't exist, first of all, but they were thinking they just follow what was passed. But now there's much more responsibility. One last point that's very important is that Hamilton looked for energy within the executive branch, but it wasn't to be a big, monolithic, giant organization. There were a few delegated tasks within the Constitution to the executive branch. Within those few tasks, Hamilton said it should be full of energy and full of action. July 11th, 1804, a day that saddens many of us Hamiltonians. Alexander Hamilton got in a rowboat, 7 a.m., to face Thomas Jefferson's vice president at the time, Aaron Burr. So we're at the bluffs overlooking the spot where the duel happened. So July 11th, 1804, when Alexander Hamilton was struck with a bullet from Vice President Aaron Burr, he was rowed back across the Hudson River to New York City, where he passed away 30 hours later, surrounded by friends and his family. But if you really want to see what he accomplished, the impact he had was for New Jersey and New York on both sides of the Hudson River. His contribution can be seen as we look across the skyline. As we look to the right, it's the financial district where Alexander Hamilton put in place the economic systems, the financial systems, the banking systems, the investment systems that allowed the nation to pay off its debt, strengthen its budget posture, fund the national government, and between both the government system and the economic system, developed a very powerful, successful nation. And so it was here that the end of Alexander Hamilton's life and contributions occurred.